Hey guys, if you're looking to kick your ministry and frankly all the ministries in your church up to a next level, then you should take a look at the StoryBrand framework. That's what we're going to talk about today. Hey guys, I'm so glad that you've joined us. Thank you for being a part of this episode of CTA Live. I keep saying CTA Alive. I cannot say that. CTA Live. In case we haven't met, my name is Dave Curley, and I'm the founder of Church Training Academy. That's churchtrainingacademy.com. And if you don't know what that is, it's a place where we all are learning how to use and exploit media and technology in order to fulfill the Great Commission. It's really simple. We've got this vast mission field called the internet. And we are learning how to take all this cool stuff that's going out there, all this social media and podcasting and live streaming and all this wonderful stuff out there, and point it at changing lives. So with me today, as usual, is my buddy, Mr. Justin Nava. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, Dave. Glad to be here. Excited for today.
Have you been reading the book, StoryBrand, Justin?
Read it, reread it, and now I'm actually applying it.
Nice. Have you marked it up and got it all loaded with tape and highlights and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I did that, and then the tape left marks on my phone screen, so I had to stop doing that because I read the digital version.
You're doing the digital version too, yeah.
Yeah, because I never know when I'm going to have a chance to read, right. So instead of carry a book around with me all the time, I actually did that a couple books ago with Expert Secrets, and either I didn't have the book with me or I was carrying around a book for no reason.
Right.
So I just said, I tried it, but once again, I got to go all digital.
Right. Yeah. So you read it on your phone?
Yes.
Wow. See, I don't do a lot of the reading on my phone. I do it on like on an iPad or a Kindle or something like that. All right.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I just always have my phone. If you know anything about me, I live out on my phone.
Yeah.
And my iPad is just a glorified Netflix box right now. So, again, I don't know where I'm going to be, work, getting the oil changed, waiting to pick up Jill, but wherever I am, I have it on my phone. So that's how I read.
Yeah, that's cool. And you're using an iPhone X, is that right?
iPhone 10, yes.
Yes, the X, that's right. The iPhone X. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. I actually do some editing in Final Cut X.
Yeah, I do too. That's my preferred platform.
Yeah,
as you could probably guess.
Yes.
You say we're both tacticians, dude. You are the tactician master. You're the maestro. You're the tactician. You get in there. You get down and dirty. I'm just the strategist in the back that says, "Let's do this instead," or "Let's do it this way." And then you're the one that actually gets your hands dirty. I'm watching Punisher right now. I'm just Agent Orange. The guy that just points, and then you're the guy that actually goes out in the field and carries out the mission.
Nice. So I'm John Barenthal, huh? With the broken nose Punisher. And everything. Awesome. I'm gonna wear a Punisher shirt with the CTA logo in the middle of it.
There you go.
That'll be awesome. The skull, a skull and a cross. We're coming for you.
Punishing bad live streams. No, we're not punishing them.
We will if you don't do it right. Awesome. Well, hey, let's bring in my pastor, Jared Wellman. Hey guys, today we are talking to Jared Wellman, Dr. Jared Wellman, actually. He's a newly minted PhD, which is cool. He is the author of a book called The Church Member. He is also the founder and creator of the AnswersOnHeaven.com ministry. And he is my pastor, lead pastor at Tay Springs Baptist Church. And today we're going to be talking about story and using story in your ministry and using it as a framework for basically doing everything in your ministry. Jared, thank you so much for being with us today, bub.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Okay, so before we get into storytelling and all the stuff that we're doing and all the magic or whatever that's happening over at our church, really quick, I want to do like a rapid fire Q&A thing. I want some of our viewers to kind of get to know you on a more deeper, personal, intimate level, okay? So are you ready?
Sure.
Are you ready? Because I'm cocked and loaded. You sure?
Okay.
All right, here we go. All right, Coke or Dr. Pepper?
Dr. Pepper.
Okay, Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars. Yeah.
Good. Okay, very good.
Star Trek's not real. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so, okay. Lord of the Rings or Narnia?
Lord of the Rings, definitely.
Okay. Let's see. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Introvert.
Yet you're a pastor?
Yep.
And you stand up in front of everybody? Tex-Mex or Chinese?
Oh, man. Chinese.
Really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Probably some of my favorite food. Yeah.
Do you like sushi?
I don't think I've ever had sushi.
No, I got to fix that. Okay, cool. All right, so let's get into talking about story. Justin and I have been going through the StoryBrand book. That's a for those of you who don't know, it's an excellent book on how to use storytelling and a framework for using storytelling in business and in selling products and marketing and all this kind of stuff. And Jared, you started trying to adapt some of this methodology into ministry and stuff. What were you thinking, I guess?
I think God made people a certain way, and a lot of times I think we can get, and I'm going to be very careful on how I say this, but sometimes we can get ultra spiritual to the point where it becomes laziness in how we communicate things. And so, I think there are two opposite spectrums to the thought of really marketing in the church. Some people say, why should you market at all? We believe in a sovereign God, and he can do anything. And if you just pray enough, then he'll send the people. And I believe that to be true. I think if we pray enough, and I think if we serve him faithfully, he can do whatever he wants to do. He's done that before. But a lot of times we'll use that as an excuse to not think about the context in which we're doing ministry. I've been in Odessa in West Texas the last 6 years, and it's different doing ministry out there than it is doing ministry in the city. And so I think that we also have to think about how we're communicating. Some people call that really marketing, and you have to be careful with that because you don't want to throw all of your eggs into the basket of marketing and say, well, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to kind of push God to the side, and we're going to make sure we're packaging things this certain way. So there's got to be a blend. But Jesus himself said that he's given us a great truth, and he doesn't want us to put a lamp over that light. We want to put it on a stand for everyone to see. And so I think that's how I understand what we would call marketing. And so I got involved in StoryBrand because Don Miller, author of Blue Like Jazz, was a formidable book many years ago. Everybody really my age read it. And I just followed him, and he got into storytelling. And as someone who enjoys writing and who enjoys reading, I followed what he was doing. And ultimately, he created this business on using story to communicate. And I thought that would not only be helpful for me in developing sermons, but also helpful for me in developing vision for a church and pastoring and in communication in general.
So for the people that don't know what StoryBrand is exactly, can you walk us through what the framework is and just kind of overall telling the story of your brand? How would you break that down before we kind of get into how we're using it? Give me like the 2-minute, 10-story elevator ride of what StoryBrand is.
So StoryBrand, Don Miller created this. He wrote Blue Like Jazz. He had this crew come and want to do a movie on his life, specifically from that book. And he was fascinated with what they were doing in order to create that film. And they taught him that there is a rhythm to storytelling. And so it's not haphazard. It's like playing music. So I could get my guitar and I could just play random notes, and there's no rules to that, and it's just noise. And storytelling is the same way. What he learned is that there are really 7 different things to every story. And so every story ultimately has these things in one way or another. And if you're not following those rules, and what I would say is that God is the one who created those rules. I think God tells stories all in the Bible. The Old Testament is full of stories. Jesus told stories in the parables. And so I was fascinated with using that model because I felt like it transcended languages and ethnicities and cultural barriers. And so he studied that, and he created this organization called StoryBrand to help businesses clarify their message. And so it's a little challenging as a church because his goal is to help businesses make money, and our goal is to help make disciples. And so we kind of had to do a little bit of filtering with that. But ultimately, StoryBrand is this: it's 7 plot points. It's about it's a character who has a problem, who meets a guide, who gives them a plan. Then there's a call to action, and that results in either success or defeat. And so he uses that in marketing in the sense of saying, as a company, what companies tend to do naturally, everyone sees themselves as the hero. And he says, so a company like a plumbing company is going to create a website and create marketing copy and all of that. And they're going to position themselves in the place of the hero because that's how they see themselves, when in reality, they ought to be the guide. And so what he says is you have to place your business within the model of that story, and you have to make your customer the hero of that story, and you have to be the guide. So the customer is the Luke Skywalker, and the guide is the Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you need to make sure that you're not competing for resources with the hero. And so there's a book that just came out last month about this. I went to a workshop in Portland a couple of months ago and met Don Miller personally and talked with him through some of these things. And it was a pretty neat experience. And so we have been using it in our church. We're about to walk our staff through it as well. And they're going to read the book. And anytime we do a new ministry, we're going to funnel it through this, because I think it's probably, for me, the best way of communicating a new ministry.
When you talk about how like the plumbing company, they kind of position themselves, and in a lot of cases it's unintentional, positioning themselves as the hero. We're the hero. We're here to solve your problems, that kind of thing. I was remembering one of the examples that he uses in the book is about the guy who has, he was in one of his workshops and he said, StoryBrand won't work for my kind of business because we have a really diverse business. He said, what do you do? And he said, we powder coat engine parts, we seal concrete, and then we also like sandblast or something like that, And he's like, yeah, that is pretty diverse. Let's go look at your website. And he goes and looks at the website, and the guy had hired some really great artist guy to do this beautiful painting of the building and the site that this guy has for his company. And he said he went there, and the first thing he looked at this thing, and he's like, do you guys give away breadsticks?
Mm-hmm.
It looks like an Italian restaurant.
Exactly.
Did you paint and you powder coat? And he said, can we make reservations, or do you guys take walk-ins? And he said, he asked everybody in the room, he said, what if we got rid of everything on there? Because they had like several different calls to actions. They had their history, a timeline of the company, how they got started, how long they've been doing it, what type of equipment they use, just all this different kind of stuff. And he asked him in the group, he said, how many of you people think in here that if we wiped out everything on his website and put a picture of a guy holding a powder coating thing, and it just said, we paint all kinds of crap? Do you think, and click here for more information, how many of y'all think that he would start making sales and get the point across? And everybody in there raised up their hands. And that kind of stuck with me in there, that so many times when you go to a church's website, it's always a beautiful picture of the building. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful picture of this magnificent steeple, if they still do those. It's making the assumption that people are looking to come to this big, beautiful, formal building, and that's what I'm looking for, is this gigantic church or this little bitty building. And
they're establishing themselves as the hero at that point.
Exactly.
Because they're saying, look at us, look what we've done, look what we've built, look who we are. And so when someone comes, there's not enough room when someone wakes up, they see themselves as the hero, and there's not enough room. This town isn't big enough for the two of us kind of mentality, and so they're looking for a guide. Everyone's looking for a guide for some kind of problem. And when they look at a plumbing company or a powder coating painting company, and they see that this person is the hero, they're going to go somewhere else. And there's a lot more to that too. There's a lot of science behind that. There's things that your brain is doing. There's reasons behind all these kinds of things. So it's not just the 7 plot points. It's what those 7 plot points actually represent.
You're talking about like the survive and thrive, that we have that innate thing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so every hero is, and the brain is really wired this way. Every brain is wired in a way where you're trying to survive. You want to make sure you have enough food. You want to make sure you have a home. You want to make sure you have a community. So if the barbarians are coming over the hill, you're safe. You know where to go. You know what to do. But then there's also a second thing that the brain does, and that is it's trying to conserve calories, which kind of competes with the survival skills because it takes energy to think about, okay, where am I going to go get my next meal? How am I going to pay this bill? All these kinds of things. But conserving calories is a defensive mechanism. Whenever something is complicated, like on a website, for example, and you go there and it has all of these different calls to action. So if you're watching a movie and everyone knows what Jason Bourne wants, for example, Jason Bourne wants to know who he is. But if you go to a movie and the movie says, well, Jason Bourne wants to know who he is and he wants to get married. Oh, and also he wants to lose 10 pounds. The moviegoer is going to get confused and your brain is going to have a hard time wrapping itself around that concept. And you're going to want to leave. And so usually if there's a movie that's bad, that's one of the reasons why, is because they've broken the rules to storytelling and the brain has had a hard time processing all of that and it shuts down and then you leave. And so ultimately conserving calories is really important. So as a church, ultimately what we want to do is we want to help people. We want to have a simple call to action. We want people to know very clearly what we're the problem we're wanting to solve. And that's a big part of that is if there is no problem, there is no story. And so companies have to identify what problem they're trying to solve. And so that painting company, they're making it more complex than it is. Ultimately, they just paint a lot of stuff, and that's what they need to tell people.
So Jared, okay, so here's the problem though. Here's what I hear my clients and people telling me is that we're a church. We're not a problem solver like a plumber, right? Like my toilet leaked, had backup. What do you call it? Backwash or whatever. And so I called a plumber and he came and fixed it. That was a problem, right? And that's fine. I'm the hero. I have a problem. The plumber's my guide. He gave me the plan to fix it and all that. But we're a church. We want to make disciples. We're not a fire extinguisher. We're not a get out of hell free card. We're here to grow the kingdom. And at the same time, it's the same thing. We have dozens of things going on. We have Sunday worship, Wednesday Bible study, youth group, kids group, missions ministry, going to Mexico. Okay, so let's start with you maybe. How did Tate Springs implement StoryBrand without hopefully leaving things in the dust? And what have you seen change, and how would you encourage other churches to kind of get started? Because right now it's very businessy and it sounds great for businesses, but how have you made it work for Tate Springs?
And so that was the challenge, is when I went to this workshop and it was all really for businesses to make money, and then started thinking, okay, how can we take this model? Because I really believed in the StoryBrand model. I feel like if I'm preaching, for example, and I am explaining a point, if I spend the entire sermon just giving information and explaining information, people are going to start daydreaming. They're going to check out. But if I kind of salt in a story or an illustration, you can just see people respond and you can see people open up. People just love that. And so, if I'm talking about this Greek word and I'm breaking down the context and talking about what it means, and then I say, the other day I was in line at Subway, it's just this story loop that gets people brought in and helps illustrate. Like yesterday in the sermon, I told the story about this dog named Gordo that I wrestled to the ground, and I would imagine that's probably the thing people probably remember the most. But I always want that illustration to push back to the gospel, to point back to the message of the text. And so it was a challenge to make that leap from the business model to the church. But ultimately, the thing that worked for me, I think the thing that helped me see how this could work was when it came not really necessarily to the problem, but when it came to the guide. And so like in his book, he has this, in Donald Miller's book, StoryBrand, you can see how much I have it, post notes all over the place, post-it notes. He said, if we're tempted to position our brand as the hero because heroes are strong and capable and the center of attention, we should take a step back. In stories, the hero is never the strongest character. Heroes are often ill-equipped and filled with self-doubt. They don't know if they have what it takes. They are often reluctant, being thrown into the story rather than willingly engaging the plot. The guide, however, has already been there and done that and has conquered the hero's challenge in their own backstory. And so when he started talking about the difference between the hero and the guide, and when he gets to the guide part of the book, he starts talking about how the guide is really a servant. And then it helped me to see, a lot of times in the church, we say, well, Jesus is the hero. Jesus is the hero. When in reality, he's really not, because a hero, the protagonist in a book, is the reluctant one. He's the one who has all the issues and the problems. And that's not Jesus at all. I mean, Jesus is the one who was tempted in every way, but never had a problem, never sinned. We're the ones with the issues. And so, and then the scriptures in the New Testament talk about how we should imitate Christ in our ministry and our discipleship and in our lives. And so as a church, this is the way the hierarchy works in our church, is Jesus is the guide to really the leadership of the church, which is the hero in that sense. So you have to rethink about how you define hero, because immediately you're thinking, oh, you're not the hero, Jesus is. But by definition, Jesus is the guide, the leadership is the hero, the staff. And then we want to imitate Christ and become the guide for the church, who is the hero of the story. And then we want to disciple the church to become the guide so that they can help the hero, who are lost people, find their part in God's story. Ultimately, is what we want to do. And so that's the hierarchy of how it works. And so we were just like that painting company. We thought, man, there's a lot of problems we want to solve. We want to help. We want to help dig wells in Africa. We want to help families not go through divorce, and so ultimately, we started thinking about all that. And ultimately the problem is lostness. And the answer is salvation in Christ alone. But then we started thinking about how is that going to translate to a lost person, And so for us as a church, ultimately what we decided to do, specifically with our website, was we wanted to position ourselves as the guide. And we're doing something that I haven't seen any other church do. And it is different. I don't know if we're necessarily losing a whole lot. I don't know how much of a gamble or a risk it is, but it is a decision that we intentionally made. And we've seen some good things come of it. We've really done it in three ways. We've done the StoryBrand model on our vision. We've done it through a Bible study. And it helped us create really kind of a new member class. And we've seen an increase in all three of those areas, really.
So let's get to your website here. So it's, let me pull up the URL, tatesprings.com, TATE springs.com. And as soon as I load it, instead of the typical picture of a building or even just pictures of people in worship, dark lights, people worshiping, band on stage, you actually have what looks like a classroom, and then you create the offer to attend a spiritual gift workshop. And then you have testimonies about the workshop. You have a video of you explaining the workshop, and then you have the sign up for the workshop. Tell me, I mean, that's really what the homepage is. That's the message that I see on your website. Tell me what led you through that. What was it before? What made you change it to this? What's the goal? What's the idea? And what hurdles did you have designing it that way?
So most church websites, when you go to that website, it's going to have a picture of the church. It's going to have a picture of the pastor, and it's going to have maybe our history, all of that. And ultimately, when a person who's looking for a church goes to a website like that, because a website, like 90% of people probably go and look at a website before they walk into a church. I'm not sure what the actual statistic is, but it's extremely high. And so when they go to our website, we didn't want to compete with them in the sense of them looking at a picture of me and then kind of starting to subtly think, well, I'm competing with resources here. Is he the hero of the story for me? Is the church the hero of the story for that person? Ultimately, what we wanted to do was kind of position ourselves. And this comes from our vision in Proverbs chapter 20, verse 5, which says that there's a purpose in a man's heart, which is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out. And so again, the hierarchy of Jesus being the guide to us as the hero, and then us being the guide to others who are the hero of the story. As a church, we didn't feel like we're going to be helping anybody by them looking at a picture of me or the church.
Well, that I can see that calorie thing in the logic behind that, because when they come there, it's confusing, because you were saying that like subconsciously they're thinking, how does this help me survive or thrive? That's what they're looking for, right? So if they see the building and they see a pastor on there, how does he help me survive or thrive? Versus the idea of like the way Justin has always coached churches is to have right up there, right up front, say, we're holding a seat for you. That helps them in the thrive. You know what I'm saying? That moves them towards, this is for me and stuff. So I can see what you're saying there. Subconsciously, those calories are fighting, or they're expending calories and getting tired already. Yeah.
And it has to do with the problem. And so a story doesn't exist without a problem. And so if you go to watch a movie, or if you pick up a book and the movie begins and Jason Bourne knows who he is already, I mean, it's not fun. It's not a good story, but there are problems. Everyone has problems that they're trying to solve. And there are 3 levels to those problems. Don Miller talks about this in his book. There's the physical level, or the external, the internal, and the philosophical. And so the external is my yard is dying. I need, my grass is turning brown. Everyone else around me, their grass is green. The internal is it's something that has to do with, hey, everyone's looking at me like something's wrong with us, like we don't care about our home. We're portraying ourselves in a way that I don't want to be portrayed. That's the internal. And the philosophical level is the oughts and shoulds. And so this is where the company would say everyone deserves, the yard of their dreams or whatever. And so that's, kind of the marketing angle. But the internal problem is really what people are looking to solve. And so if Liam Neeson is in a movie and the external problem is there's a bomb that's about to go off. That's kind of the external thing. People are intrigued by that, but they're not necessarily going to buy into that. It's the internal struggle of, does he have what it takes? Maybe there's a backstory about one time there was a bomb that exploded and killed his dad or his family. And now, does he have what it takes? And so there's this internal struggle. Well, for a church, we realized that when it comes to our website, we wanted to offer to solve an internal problem that we believe many Christians have, which is that they feel like they're not really making a difference. And so a lot of Christians are coming to church and they're involved in church, but they go home and they're so busy, they don't know if they were to pass away, if they would have made a difference with their life. And so what we wanted to do was kind of tease that problem a little bit and let them know, hey, here's a problem we're aware that many people have.
Hi, I'm Jared, pastor at Tate Springs. Have you ever wondered if your life is making a difference? If the world is any different because you're in it? Irrelevancy is probably one of my biggest fears. It scares me to death to think that one day I could stand before God and not have anything to show for the life He's given me. Tate Springs is a church that knows what it's like to want to make a difference. And that's why we've created a spiritual gift workshop. The Bible says that when Jesus ascended to heaven, that He gave gifts to people, and every believer has one. The problem is that most believers don't know what their gift is, and they don't know how to discover it. That's why I want to invite you to our next spiritual gift workshop. There's a few things that we do at these workshops. We help you learn what a biblical list of spiritual gifts are. The second thing is, we give you a test that helps you discover what your unique gift is. And the third thing is that we help you find ways that you can start using your gift today. One of the reasons that we feel so helpless and we wonder if we're making a difference is because we don't know how God has equipped us to make that difference. Attending the Spiritual Gift Workshop will help you discover how God has equipped you so that you can make the biggest difference with your life. Click below and sign up for our next workshop. Together, we can discover the unique gifts God has given us. I'd love to see you there.
We want to be a church that helps you discover that gift so that you can make a world-changing impact. And so the bigger problem, Justin, is ultimately people who are looking for a church. We want people to do more than just come on a Sunday morning, because you can come to Sunday morning and leave and we'd never know you were there. what we want to do is get you plugged into a smaller community where there's some accountability, where we are positioning ourselves as a guide that's helping you discover how God's equipped you so that you can make a difference. And if you can come to that event versus a large, group worship hour, suddenly you're brought into the ecosystem of the church at a far more accountable level. And we felt like that was a better way for us to establish our front page as a church, rather than just a picture of a building that has a paragraph of our vision statement. I don't know if that would help anybody. People can go look for that stuff. It's just not the front page.
So this is kind of a controversial way of doing it, Jared, because I immediately, when I look at the website, and before our listeners jump down my throat, this is not gotcha journalism. I prepped Jared that I was going to ask this question, and he said it was okay. And you already hit on some of it, is that, our website is for people to discover our church. And in the typical website is, these are our service times. This is our worship. This is our ministries. This is how you check in our kids. The homepage can be as long as you want, but it still all kind of points to that Sunday experience. But you're pointing to that more intimate workshop experience for Christians. Now, how do you, basically why? Because, churches' websites most of the time, and yes, even I coach this, is for the visitor. It's for my mother-in-law, a woman who has never stepped foot in church in her life, but when she feels that pull, hopefully, she goes online and she finds a church that communicates to her. This website, your website, Tate Springs, would fail the mother-in-law test, as I call it, because it's all about spiritual gifts, and she's not even aware of that yet. So walk me through. This is my last question. I'll let Dave take over kind of the Q&A there, but this is the big question that I would see other churches looking at your website and other people that say, okay, well, what's for my mother-in-law? I mean, is this all you do is the spiritual workshop? Kind of walk me through the process to decide that, and then go into a little bit more of like why you did it and really what the outcomes are now that you're focusing, at least on the homepage, the workshop.
Yeah.
Is it still bringing in new people, or is it bringing in a different kind of people? What's the retention like? Maybe you don't have the time for that, but go into that more, because that is the big game changer.
So people are going, I'm convinced that if someone is looking for a church to attend, and they want to know what the theological beliefs of the church, or they want to know who the pastor is, they want to know all of that, they're going to go look for all of that, and most people don't read. So if you go to a church website and it's got big sliders, that are kind of sliding across the screen, statistics show that no one ever sits there and looks at all that information.
Yeah, it's like 3%.
So yeah, a person on a website, church website, business website, whatever, they're a squirrel looking for a nut. That's all it is. And so what you have to do is you have to make your website so simple, and there's got to be one thing that you want them to do. And so I felt like, as a pastor, if that one thing was come to a Sunday morning church service, then what we're doing is we're communicating the exact opposite of what Jesus called us to do. Because Sunday morning worship hour, even last night when we were out in the community sharing our faith, we come across people all the time who base their salvation on, I go to church somewhere. And you ask them, well, why are you saved? And they say, because I'm a good person. Well, what are your good works? I go to church as much as I can. And so we felt like if that's what we're communicating is the most important thing you can do, this is, as a church, here's the most important thing you can do, come to church. Our vision for church is that the Sunday morning attendance, of that Sunday morning experience, is the climax of the week, but also a catalyst for the week. And so our workshop is strategically designed to happen after a Sunday morning service. And so if someone comes to the workshop, they're likely going to come to church as well. And so we're getting not just someone coming to church who may or may not fill out a card that we may or may not ever meet. We may or may not ever know they walked into the doors of our church. We've created a workshop that actually equips them. And because Jesus says, go and make disciples. And so the workshop is a way for us to start that disciple making process immediately for a visitor. So it's going to be hard to make a disciple if they're just coming into church, but it's easier to make a disciple if I get to meet them one-on-one. I get to help them discover how God has equipped them because some people are, and so the way the workshop works is they come and we teach them about spiritual gifts. They take a test, and then we tell them how they can use that gift. And we say, hey, by the way, here's a list of things that our church does where you can plug in your gift today. Oh, and by the way, you have to join to do that. And so we get them, we have this whole process that helps bring them in. We have seen, based on the eye test, I've only been here 6 months, so I can't talk about retention rate and all that yet. But what we've seen in the 3 areas that we've used this, we've seen an increase. So our Sunday morning attendance 6 months ago was in the 400s. We've been peaking in the 500s. We had close to 600 recently. We've done some events that we've kind of funneled through the StoryBrand model. We did a Bible study on Wednesday nights. This was our first Wednesday night study, but I was told that maybe the attendance was 40 people or so. Our first night we had close to 200, and we've been in the over 100 ever since. So it's at least doubled by funneling really the marketing, if you will, telling people, hey, there's a Bible study, come. We actually told them why they should come, because there's a problem we're wanting to solve, and we're going to be a guide that helps you through this. And then the spiritual gift workshop is our new members class. Basically, it's the front door into the church, and so we feel, and we had a full room. Before that, we had these 2 little events that we did for guests, and we would have 1 or 2 or 3 people come. But we had a room full of people. We had a lot of young people there too. That was another reason for this, is that young people, the up and coming generation, love experiences, and so and they love discovering themselves. And so we wanted to speak to the largest generation in the history of the world and let them know we're here to help you find out who you are in God, and help you become everything God wants you to be. And so that's why we decided to put that on the front page, because I don't think anyone's going to come to Tate Springs because I'm the pastor. I don't think anyone's going to come to Tate Springs because we may or may not have a pretty building. I think people may come to the church because they see that we desperately want to help them. And so we decided to put that front and center. We did make sure to put when our Sunday morning services are very clearly, so we have 1 page, there's no scrolling at all, no sliders at all. And it starts out with the hero, who is the guest, the problem, which is, hey, I may or may not know how God's equipped me. And then as you scroll to the bottom, you have really all 7 plot points to the point where we want to help you end in a success, which is discovering how God equipped you so that you can make a difference with your life. And so it helps teach people, we're not interested in you just coming and sitting on the back pew. We're interested in you coming and serving. And from the very beginning of your experience here, we're going to put you to work. The typical church website, when you go there, the information about nursery and all that, you're going to have to click to get there anyway. Well, it's the same thing for ours. There's the about page. You click on it and you can learn everything about our church. And
we're using the about section as an actual about section, not a whole bunch of menus across the top saying, Bible studies and this and all that. No, you want to know about the church, then you go to the about section, and here's our number.
And we wanted the experience, the website experience, we wanted it to be easy. Mm-hmm. We don't have a whole lot of words on the website because most people aren't going to sit there and read. I mean, we have a spot for those who want to know our doctrine and beliefs. You can read through the whole BFNM 2000 if you want, but generally, even our staff page, we've kind of made sure that we want to be like Jesus, who humbled himself. And so we don't have this big illustrious section about what we like and what we dislike. And, it's just, here's a little paragraph to let you know that. So Don Miller talks about the guide, and he says there are 2 things about the guide: empathy and authority. And so, we just kind of have a little salt in a paragraph that lets you know, hey, our staff, they're not just people off the street. They have education, they have experience, they're here to help you. But ultimately, we're here to serve you the way Jesus served us. And we're not interested in you coming just to serve us. We want to serve you so that you can serve others. And so it's a whole philosophy that we're trying to teach people from the very beginning. the jury's still out on how it's all gonna look, but we're seeing some very positive things here at the front end of it.
So did that
All right.
debunk your whole thing there, Justin? Did he shut you down?
That's for the listener to determine. But yeah, for me, I'm with Jared. I mean, it's simplifying it. It's meeting a need. I mean, even Jesus met needs, right? He fed and healed. So it's I mean, it's a lot to think about.
And I would say to Justin, who said that the test wouldn't, or our website wouldn't pass the mother-in-law test, my own mother-in-law actually came to our first spiritual gift workshop. And so, so I think we have evidence that it actually does speak. I really think that people are interested in knowing how God has equipped them and made them. And there's a whole lot of different problems the church could, that the church could say, this is kind of how we're going to set up our website. For us, we strategically chose that one because we felt like it would help be a good front door into the church. Mm-hmm. And I think it was good. We had a good time, and a lot of people took the test, and we have their information now. It goes into a database, and so we can get them, plugged in immediately, and hopefully not just have a church that's full of people, but have a church full of people who are serving according to the gifts that God has given them. And that's the hope that we have, that we're making disciples based on how God has uniquely equipped each person. So
cool. Awesome. Jared, thanks for being with us and sharing this vision and this idea and stuff. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Excellent information there. It kind of makes sense now, doesn't it? That's I hadn't ever really thought about using story or the impact that story has. Now, that's how we communicate. That's how we learn. That's how we make decisions, is by things that we learn in stories. We identify with story. Our life is a story. So, gosh, man, that is such a powerful framework, I think. And when you apply it to your church's website, to your church, to the ministries, all the various ministries, and that's something that Jared was telling me that he wants to do, is work this framework into like every aspect of ministry we have. Whether he's doing it with his sermons, he's doing it with Bible studies, he's training the staff to do it in the Bible studies that they lead and stuff. We're going to do it with the ministry leaders, Sunday school teachers, small group leaders, all that sort of stuff. It's really powerful. It can be powerful. By the way, guys, I want to let you guys know that we've got a free resource for you, 7 Church Website Essentials. So if you go to betterchurchwebsite.com, you can get this. This is a resource that we've put together to show you some of the most important aspects of your website and some tips on how to improve your website. It's a great resource. You can thank Justin for doing that. He is the website and social media maven in our little team here. His strengths are definitely in that area, and this is a tremendous resource. So I suggest everybody download a copy of this resource, go through it, take a look, apply some of the things that you're learning in there, see how you can apply things, line your church's website, line your personal website, your business's website, whatever. Line these up with the principles that he's going over in there. I think you'll be amazed at what can happen. Guys, thanks so much for watching. We will be here again next week, 11 a.m. Central, here at ctalive.com. Thank you guys so much for watching, and take some of the stuff that you guys have been learning today and go out there and change some lives.